What's going on, everyone? Just a quick sound check. Can you let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay? What's up, everyone? We're gonna get started in just a second. I'll do my usual, make myself bigger. Okay, so as the stream title told you, we're going to do an interactive kind of Python coding today, and so this will be an opportunity for you to actually code along with me, and we're gonna go slow enough so everybody can do it. Not gonna rush. Like normally, I rush through it just to because I'm trying to cover a lot of material and I type fast and I know that you can just look at the code later. But the intent of this stream is to actually code along and understand everything you're writing and not just do it really fast. So I think it'll be good. I'm going to do a quick channel update, EMKC update, a couple other things. In the meantime, make sure you get your editor ready, whatever that may be. Make sure you have Python 3 ready, and then make sure you have a terminal open and ready, because you'll need that to run your file. So go ahead and get all that ready, and I'm going to do a quick update, and then a quick Q&A, and then we're going to get to the coding. So the only update I really have is that obviously where are the videos, and the videos are I finally finished the gate I was making for my dog to keep him in, but the gate is really advanced. It's pretty cool, and I'm gonna end up doing a video on it. It's controlled by a Raspberry Pi and a USB relay and a long range wireless antenna, and then of course a web server in my house, and then an Android app for me to control it. So I'm gonna create something with that. I've already built it all. It's completely done now. That project is 100% done, and it works great. And I think it'll be fun to check that out later. Science is life. Yes, the stream will as soon as the stream is over with, it'll automatically get pushed into the videos on YouTube, so you can watch it later. People can watch it if they missed it. And of course, you can always follow along after the fact, on the video. So that's the update. Other than that, channel is perfectly healthy. Everything's great. Discord's great. Community's great. It's all good. There's no complaints. So good to go. EMKC is EMKC. There's a lot of people on there now. There's like 800. I think last time I checked, 817. 817 people on there, and there's been like I think 6,800 challenge solutions submitted, which is just an absurd number. And there's been close to 100,000 points awarded, and yeah, that's really cool. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So, it's one of my staff's birthday, Kyle Undefined. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday. I don't know if he'll be here. He'll probably be out partying. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to see if there's any questions here, answer a few things. Feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and I'll answer them, and then we'll jump into the code. So Aaron Darwish asked, how do you get so good at technology and programming in general? Do you spend the vast majority of your day practicing your craft? Yes. So programming is one of those things where not only is it the thing that I do professionally, it's also the thing that I enjoy doing as a hobby. And that's sort of a dangerous thing, because when you we do something all day and you're really passionate about it, which I am. I do it almost 99% because I like it, and of course there is the 1%, that it pays okay, but I do it primarily because I like it, and because I like it, I want to just keep learning more. And technology is so insane in 2019 that you can build almost anything, and hardware is getting faster, it's getting cheaper, cloud services are more accessible to anybody, computers are more accessible to everybody, and it's the absolute best time to build almost anything you could possibly imagine. So to me, that's why I got so good. Is programming is just a blank slate to do anything you want, and that applies more today than it ever has at any time in the past, just because of where technology is. So, if you want to get good at something, you have to just do it a lot. And I know it sounds like a really really simple answer, but that really is what it is. You just gotta do it day in and day out, and and don't hesitate to research the low level stuff. You want to know where this technology came from as well as where it is today. It's not just oh, I can do Python programming, but have you ever thought about what happens when you run a print statement in Python? What exactly is happening? Somehow, because your CPU doesn't understand Python, so how did a print statement translate into text on the screen? And it's those sort of subtleties of technology that it's important to understand. Should I be using Python VMs such as virtual? I don't understand that. Virtual? Do you mean virtual environment? I'm going to assume you mean virtual environment. And yes, you should, because with the Python virtual environment, you can set up your environment that's just specific to your project. That way it doesn't clash with other things on your machine, as well as other projects on your computer. So I think it's worth definitely doing that. Do you think it's worth learning Elixir? Will there be a realistic chance of landing a position in the future? So I don't think Elixir is so popular to where that would be your key into a position. However, it's always good to learn new technology, and that's true whether it's obscure stuff or whether it's mainstream stuff. I mean, I know some obscure things as well. There's plenty of technologies that I learned that's domain specific or obscure, and it's worth learning those because just makes you more well-rounded. How to find ideas for projects to work on. That is one of the hardest things to do, and I've long said it. Anybody that asks me, can you give me ideas? I tell them I can try, but I'm not an ideas guy myself, so it's somewhat hard for me to come up with an idea for myself, let alone several other people. So but the best thing I can say is if you're just looking for an idea on, something to practice, like you just want to get better and you want an idea for a project just to get yourself better, the best thing is just to go on GitHub and just find a project that's already out there and then just recreate it. Don't look at what they did. Don't copy them. Don't copy their architecture or take any of their code, but, take their idea and try to build it yourself. So that'd be the easiest way. GitHub is, of course, full of software, probably millions, if not tens of millions, projects on there across hundreds of languages, across hundreds of thousands of people, or more, probably millions of people. So that's the best place to go, I think. What's the best site for learning AI? I don't have that answer. I'm not sure, actually. If anybody knows a good site for learning AI, certainly put it in the chat to help Rohan out. But I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not very good with AI, and I've done very little in my career of it. So I just don't know. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I think that's it for the questions for right now, as far as I can tell. So let's go ahead and start doing some coding. So The project we're building, as the title said, is we're going to be building a really basic blackjack game. It's going to be text-based, terminal-based, and it's going to implement just the really basic stuff. I'm not trying to we're not trying to implement the entire blackjack because that wouldn't fit into one stream, but we are Felix Food Fidget. Thanks for the 5. I will deliver that $5 to Felix. I will buy him transistors, nuts, bolts, and lightning, and I will give him all of it. Thanks a lot for that. Nom nom. That's good. So we're going to build a subset of blackjack. We're not trying to build the whole thing. In fact, after this, I'm going to provide the code available on GitHub, and then you can I encourage you to actually expand on what we've done today. Of course, it's not going to be a huge thing, but I encourage you to expand on the code and improve it. I also encourage you to make an online version. Try to make a multiplayer. But this will be a good base. I've already written the code, so it's only about 100 lines, so it should be fairly simple. We're gonna go through it, the whole way through. But the important thing is I want to show the thought process on what it takes to build this type of application. So let me just size myself down here. So we're gonna start now. So if you don't have your terminal open, if you don't have an editor open, or you don't have Python 3 installed, you should do so now. Okay, let's see. Alrighty. Okay, so we're playing blackjack. So Singh, thanks a lot for that. Super love from India. Have my buck. Awesome. Thanks so much for that. Thanks so much for the dollar. Appreciate that. So obviously the first thing that we need in blackjack is going to be a deck of cards, and that's something that's necessary. In blackjack they got the little feeder and they got a bunch of cards in there. We're just going to use one deck, but we have to represent that in a Python list. So of course there's 52 cards in the deck, and there's 4 sets of 13 cards. So start by creating an empty list called cards, and then in there you want to load it with all of the cards that you might find, and so it's going to be a 2. And then there's also going to be a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, and Ace. And if you don't want to type this out, I'll copy and paste it into YouTube. But start by creating the first 13 things in the deck. So we'll do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then the J for Jack, Q for Queen, K for King, and then the Ace. So I'm just going to put that in the chat for you guys. Of course it's not letting me send it, so here I'm going to put a portion of it in the chat, and then you can just okay, well YouTube's not letting me send it there, so I guess you're going to have to type it out. So there's, of course, 52 cards in the deck, and now remember an ace is going to be, I don't know why YouTube's not letting me put it in the chat. That's absolutely ridiculous, but I'm going to put it in Discord. In case you're on Discord, I'll put it in the programming chat. It's kind of dumb that I had to do this, but so keep in mind the ace in blackjack, the ace can be a 1 or an 11. So, but we're going to handle that later. It's important that this just represent the cards that are going to be in the actual deck, and this is what we have here. So, of course, next thing you're going to need to do is shuffle up the cards, and to do that we can use the random module. So the random module, to import that, just do import random. And what that's going to give you access to is going to give you access to all the functions and constants that are in the random module for Python. Except the one that we want to use is going to be random.shuffle, which does exactly what it sounds like. It's going to shuffle the list in place, and then you'll have a shuffled set of cards. So we do random.shuffle and then cards. What this gives us is a shuffled deck of cards that will happen every time the programmer runs, and then we'll be ready to actually start dealing things. So shouldn't we make them suits? You don't necessarily need to, as far as I understand. Oh, so one thing we're not doing is things like split or double down. So just having the values are going to be fine. And the only reason I didn't do 10, 10, 10, 10 is because I still want to display the right card on the screen. It's just there's going to have to be a point later where we're going to have to convert those jacks, queens, and kings to 10. And then we're going to have to convert the ace to either a 1 or 11 based on what the actual hand is. Of course, in Blackjack, if you have a hand that making an ace an 11 would cause a bust, of course you can make that ace a 1. And we're going to have to sort that out in code because the user is going to expect that, it's not a bust. It's going to expect that it's a 1. So we have cards, they're shuffled. What we're ready to do now is we're ready to deal the initial hand. And to do that, we need to have a place where the dealer cards go, and we need to have a place where the player cards go. So we can use a simple list for that. So you can do dealer equals empty list. And this will hold each card that the dealer has drawn, and then player equals empty list. And this will hold each card that the player draws. And then that's going to be their set of cards, which we can perform some other action on kind of as we go. So once you've created two lists, one for the dealer, one for the player, it's time to actually draw a card from the deck. And just like they do, we'll just take whatever's next in the list, and to do that, we can call cards.pop. And what that does is that'll take the item off the end, and then it will remove it from the list, but also return it. So if we want to add a card to the dealer, and then what they do is they deal to all the players, and then the dealer, and then they deal to all the players again, and then the dealer. So in this case, it's going to deal to the player, to the dealer, to the player, to the dealer. So simple. We can do player.append, and what player.append does is it takes an item and adds it onto the end of a given list. So in this case, this will append one item onto the player list, player.append. And then we want to just pop one card off the end of the cards list. So we can do cards.pop. So we append cards.pop, and that will put one card onto the player. So then we got to give one to the dealer. So we can just copy that line. Oh, somebody asked, is the last comma in the cards array supposed to be there? The answer is it's fine. Like it's not a syntax error, and I usually do just so I don't have to worry about re-adding the comma. So, but you can remove if you want. It's like this is valid, and that's also valid if you want to remove that. But I don't. So give a card to the player, give a card to the dealer, and then you could just copy these two things, just add it right beneath it. So what this does is it adds one card to the player, one card to the dealer, one card to the player, one card to the dealer. And what we have here now is each player has two cards. Player has two cards, dealer has two cards, but of course the dealer, one of his cards is an unknown card. And we're going to have to show that to the player. It's fine that it's in the list, but we're going to have to show the player, basically like a question mark or an unknown. That way they don't actually know both of the dealer's cards. So we can actually, while people are copying, what we'll do is we'll just test this real quick. So I'm just going to print player and dealer. Well, dealer and player. Just to make sure we're good to go so far. So Python 3, Blackjack. So you can see 7Q, 9Q, 3524, 5QKK, K74A. So this is working good. This is giving us the appropriate. This is giving us the appropriate cards every time. It gives us two separate hands. Yeah. Now I'm noticing in the chat a couple people are giving some suggestions on how to make it better, and you should. I wanted to create kind of a really simple blackjack, but I urge everybody, seriously, I urge everybody to take this code at the end and improve it. And if you want, send it to me. Like send me a really updated version that is really sweet. Maybe I'll make a video of it. So we got our cards, good to go. So next thing we have to handle here is we got to kind of show the user. It's time to show the user kind of what the status of the board is. And what we need to do is start an infinite loop. And the purpose of the infinite loop here is to give the system an opportunity to just keep going over and over, because at this point the player is going to see their cards and the player is going to see the dealer's cards, and then they're going to have to make a decision. It's either going to be a hit or a stand. And they can do that over and over and over again. So we want a loop here to basically let them continue picking actions over and over until they finally stand, and then the system can process the remaining things it has to do, which is to say deal the dealer cards until they are either forced to stand or they can keep hitting. So that's what this infinite loop is going to be for. And then when we finally break out of the infinite loop, that's going to be essentially the end of the hand. It'll be over at that point. So obviously there's going to be a bunch of stuff on the screen. We're going to want to kind of clear the terminal. We want a blank slate because we're making sort of a terminal UI here, and we don't want to clutter it up with a bunch of nonsense in that terminal. So we want to clear the screen. And to do that, we need to import another module. And that module is going to be OS for operating system. And particularly what we're interested in here is going to be os.system. And os.system allows us to call a system command in that terminal kind of directly. And the one we want to call is clear in Linux clear in Linux or CLS in Windows. So there's a simple way to do this in a cross-platform kind of way. Is you can do os.system, and then you can do CLS if os.name. Now os.name is either going to be NT or something else, so we can check to see if it's Windows by doing equals NT. So CLS if it's Windows, else clear. And what this should do is this should clear the screen and let us kind of print stuff on the screen so it's not really cluttered. And we can test this just by running the program. So you can see I got a blank screen. Of course it's so blank that it's in an infinite loop. That's why I just trapped myself. Don't trap yourself in the infinite loop like I just did. Okay. So anyways, you get a blank screen, and that's sort of it there. Make sure you put a condition here. Just put quit or break. Just put break down here just to make sure it gets out of it. So obviously, if we have a bunch of stuff in our terminal and then we run Blackjack, it just clears it out. Every time we run it, it clears the whole screen. And this should work on Windows, it should work on Linux, it should work on Mac. It should work in a cross-browser kind of format. So it should be good to go. Okay, what we got to do now is we're going to show the user what cards people have. So really what we're doing here is just it's just a bunch of print statements. So we want to show the dealer cards. So we can do print. We'll do like dealer cards. And then in this case, the dealer card is going to be, I'm just going to use brackets, to show a card, and then inside there we'll put the actual card. So obviously the second card is going to be it's kind of a mystery card. So we can put a question mark there. Oh, it's not updating. What's going on here? All right. Anyways, so the dealer card could be a mystery card, and then the actual first card is going to be whatever is the first thing on the list. So that's going to be as easy as doing dot format. We're using dot format here. The two braces lets us insert a value into that, from format. So I'm doing dot format, and then I'm just going to give the first dealer card there. And then for the player cards, it's almost the same thing, except for the player cards, we want to show the player all the cards. We don't want to show just the first card. We want to show them all. So we'll do your cards. Now I'm using a little trick here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put brackets, but then inside here I'm going to put braces, and then I'm going to do every card joined by a different kind of brackets. So let me show you what I mean. We'll do formats. See how I did backwards brackets? Basically what this does is this puts their card, and then bracket, another card, bracket, and then what it eventually leads to is just all the cards properly surrounded by brackets. I thought that'd be the easiest way to do it. So we'll do that, join, and then player. And then of course the other thing we want to give the person is we want to give the person their actual score. So I thought we would just put parentheses, other braces, and then here we don't actually know the player's score yet, because we don't have a way to determine that, and that's actually kind of the first function that we're going to have to build. Is we're going to have to build the method that calculates the current player's score. So that's kind of what we're going to do next. And hold on a second, I just got to fix something in my stream here. Kind of stopped working on me here. I want to make sure it's still running. Okay, that looks good. It stopped running on me. Okay, so we need to build the actual function that's going to actually calculate what their hand is. So at this point, go ahead and just scroll up. Go ahead and scroll up, and let's place a function at the very top here. And we're going to call that function calcHand. So you do def calcHand parentheses colon. And then to calculate a hand, you have to pass the hand. So we're either going to pass this hand dealer, or we're going to pass it player. And then the goal is for this function to return the sum of the hand, somewhere between 1 and whatever. Well, actually, I guess it would be 2. 2 would be the minimum hand. So 2 and whatever. And then this will give us, because this is important. At any given time, we have to know what the dealer has, what the player has, so we know if somebody got blackjack or somebody won, or so this is an important thing. So calcHand and then hand. So in here, of course, we could set our sum as 0. We start from a 0 sum, and then we need to look at every card in the hand and then add to that sum, and then we can return the sum. So we can put sum equals 0 and then return sum, and then in between here we got to do the calculations to determine what their hand is. So remember I said that aces can be 1 or 11. So we got to handle those last. And the best thing I thought to do was create two lists from their hand, one that contains all the cards that are not aces, and one that contains all the cards that are aces. And then that lets us do those separately from one another. So I thought I would create two lists here. The first one would be non-aces. And then non-aces, all we're going to do is create a new list, and we're going to use what's called the list comprehension, which lets us create a list from an iteration over an existing list, and that's going to be hand. So we'll do card for card in hand if card does not equal A. And what this will do is this will give us a list of everything in their hand except the aces. And then we're just going to copy that line, do it a second time, except this time it's just going to be aces. And of course, instead of card does not equal A, we want card equals A. So, non-aces plus aces does equal their hand. It's still all their cards that they used to have. It's just in two separate kind of lists now. So the next thing we want to do is we want to loop over every non-aces card and just add it to the sum, because we're going to add those directly. Of course, if they get a 3, it goes in as a 3. If they get a jack, it goes in as a 10. If they get a queen, it goes in as a 10. That's just plain and simple. That's just the rules of the game, and those are fairly simple. So we can do, excuse me, getting a message here. Okay. So we're going to do two loops, one over non-aces, one over aces. So to do a loop in Python, you do for card in non-aces. And this will loop over every item in non-aces, and that value will be card, and then you can do something with it. So now we're just going to check to see if the card is a J, Q, or K, because remember, those are not integers. We can't convert that to an integer, so there has to be a way of knowing that that's actually a 10 value. So that's as simple as doing if card in JQK. So this looks to see if any of those cards are face cards, and if they are, we're simply going to increase the sum by 10. So sum plus equals 10. We add 10 to the sum. Of course, if it's not a JQK, and of course it's not an ace, because this is the non-aces list, then we can simply just convert the card to an integer and add that to the sum. So here we would do else, colon, sum plus equals int card. So this is good. This returns us the sum of all cards that are not aces. So here's where it gets a little tricky, is we got to handle the actual aces problem now. So remember, we're doing a separate iteration here. Same deal for card in aces. Now here's where it gets tricky. So we have to look at if the current sum is less than or equal to 10, then go ahead and apply that ace as an 11. Right? Because if they have 10 and they have an ace, of course they're going to want 21. That makes perfect sense for it to do that, so we got to handle that case. So we're looking if sum is less than or equal to 10, then we're going to increase the sum by 11. Now, if it's not less than or equal to 10, then that would imply that it is 11 or greater. And if it's 11 or greater, you can't make that ace an 11 because it would cause the user to bust. And that's not good. So what we got to do instead is just do sum plus equals 1. So this is our current function. This is it now. This handles everything. This sums up all the non-ace cards, and then it sums up all the ace cards according to what their hand currently is. And I thought this was a pretty good way of handling that. For card and aces, where is card defined? So card is defined by, yeah. So in the list comprehension, card essentially is the value that is, I'm trying to find a way to explain this. It's easier to do it here. So for card in non-aces, card is just a temporary variable over each loop iteration that contains the current value that it's looking at in the list. For list comprehension, card for card in hand, card is going to be the value from that value. And the reason this is necessary is because if card were an object, you could do like card dot something or subscript card, whatever else. So that's why these are the same, but in the end, it's still just the value for the current iteration. So that's where that comes from. This is a local variable only in the iteration, and it applies only to that. So say you have 64AA, it's going to calculate 22. Yeah, so 64 is going to be 10. Ace is going to be, that would add it to 21. Another ace would do 22. Yeah, that's exactly right. That would calculate to 22. However, in that case, the person wouldn't hit. Like if they got a 6-4 ace, they're not going to hit on 21. I suppose if they did, then it would calculate to 22. But that's to be expected. So this is our hand. This is cool, and we can test this now. Now that we have a way of calculating the hand, we can come, and hopefully everybody's done with this. I'll post this function on Discord just in case people are not done. So I posted that in Discord just in case people are not done with it. And what we can do now is we can come back down here and we can calculate the score. We can do this in our loop. We can do this every time. So we can do player score, create a new variable called player score. And then we can use that new function called calcHand and then pass it the player cards. We can do the exact same thing with the dealer by just copying that line, changing it to dealer. And that lets us we now have access to the scores, which is really great because, and that happens every time it loops. Every time the user makes a decision, they get, it calculates a new score and it can let them know what it is. So we can test this at this point and kind of check it out. So this 0, 0, 0, we have to replace this now with player score. So let's give it a go. Let's have a look. Let's check it out. Just going to do a couple tests here. So dealer cards 5 question mark, your cards 8 4, and you can see that it's a total of 12. See ace 10, 21, 8 ace is a 19, 8, 20, 21, 12. So it's all working good. This is what we wanted. Everything is calculating properly. So now that we have this, we have the dealer cards. Let me get back here so you can keep copying stuff. So now that we have the scores, all it takes now is we got to let the user make a decision. And the user gets to either hit or they get to stand. Those are going to be the two things that they get to do in this case. So now that we've showed them their cards, what we'll do is we'll just print just a new line there. So we got to ask the user, what would you like to do? Would you like to hit or would you like to stand? So you could just do print statements to do this. So I'll do print. What would you like to do? Next line, you can do something like, 1 is for hit, and 2 is for stand. and then you actually ask the user the question. And to get user input in Python, you use a function called input. And input just takes one argument, which is going to be the text that you want to ask the user, and then they can make a choice. So 1 is hit, 2 is stand, and then we'll do your choice. I guess we should also, put some spacing here. Oh, but not input. Okay, so we're saying here choice equals input your choice, and then whatever they put after that is going to go into the choice variable, and then that's what lets you determine kind of what they chose. So now we got to just kind of sort out their choice. We use a simple if statement for this, if choice. Remember, there's only 2 options, 1 and 2. However, we also have to handle the case where they put like a 3, a 4, or a Batman symbol, or some other weird character. And basically what we'll do is we'll just have it loop, just so it comes back. And then we're basically forcing them to pick a real choice. We don't want to just assume the user wants to do something. So we'll do choice equals 1. Now 1's going to be a hit. Now a hit is really easy because all we're going to do is just come back up here. This player.append cards.pop. I mean, this is kind of our method for dealing a new card. And because that's a method for dealing a new card, we could just take that line and just stick it right in here. So this is what we'll do if they pick a 1. If they want to hit, we're just going to take another card and just push it right into their array. Sorry, their list. It's Python, not JavaScript. And then the second option they can do is choice 2. So for here we can do elif, which is else if. So we can do elif choice equals 2. And then this is going to be the stand. Now the stand is a little more confusing because now as soon as the player wants to stand, we immediately have to calculate the dealer hand, and we got to deal them cards up until the point where they're no longer allowed to deal cards. So I know in the program I built, we're not handling this idea of soft 17. We're just going to do 16. Plain and simple, and that's going to be according to our calculation function. So if it's 16 or lower, then we're going to have them hit. So to do that, we'll do elif choice equals 2. So this is going to be stand, and then we're just going to start a while loop, and we're going to do while calc hand dealer is less than or equal to 16. Deal them another card. And that's it. We're going to just keep dealing them cards until they get over 16, and then we're going to stop. So that's kind of it for that. So let's do some tests, and we'll review this in a second. Let's run the program, and then we'll try it out. So yeah, you can see that if I hit enter, it just quits. And that's because there's nothing more to do here. Oh, I'm sorry, it's because it's hitting the break. We can actually get rid of that now. If you still have that break statement in there, you can get rid of it now because we don't want it to break. We want it to just keep looping. And now that you have the input, it'll loop forever, and it'll be perfectly fine. So you can see now if I hit enter, like I'm hitting enter right now, I'm putting a 6, I'm putting a 5, a 7, 8, 9 text. It doesn't care, like that's not a valid option, so it's not letting you do that. But if you were to do a hit, you could see that it just added a new card to your cards. Now I'm at 24. So I can keep adding cards. It's going to keep adding it. Remember, we haven't added any checks here. We haven't added any checks for have they busted. We haven't added any checks for did they make a blackjack. Did they did they hit their way to 21? There's lots of checks that we have to do. We've done none of them. All we've done so far is just made it so we're dealing the proper cards. And as you can see, hit works. If you've been following along, go back to your code and look here. If you've been following along, then you should be able to do one enter over and over, and it should work properly. If and it should just fill it up as it goes. But now we got to handle the stand. Well, the stand actually works. It's just when I come over here and I do stand, it is working. It's just a looping. But the reason it's looping is just because stand, all it does is deal the dealer cards, but the loop doesn't actually know that the dealer has had their cards dealt and that the player has stood. So it's at this point that we need to introduce a new variable just so the system knows what the player has decided. And so we're going to introduce a new variable, place it above this loop. And the new variable we're going to introduce is called standing equals false. And the purpose of standing equals false is going to be, we need a way to know if in this loop the player has stood. Because once they stand, we then have to do all the checks to see if they win, and then we also have to show all the dealer cards. And there's just lots of other things we got to do if they have chosen to stand. So stand equals false. Keep in mind that once they stand, we have to set it so standing equals true. It's important to do that, or that variable is pointless. So now we're looking at handling, we want to handle all the rest of the cases. And we're going to handle all those right in this spot here, because once the player stands, they don't get to make any more decisions. So in this location is going to be all the checks that we're going to do to see who's winning and who's not winning. So right here we're going to do if standing, and then this is only code that's going to run once the player stands. So now all we're going to do is just do a long if else if block to check all the different cases. So the first case is going to be if dealer score is greater than 21. And of course, if the dealer drew over 21, then they bust and you win. That's that. Piece of cake. So we'll put a message that says dealer busted, you win. So that's the first case handled. Done. Second case is going to be if player score equals the dealer score. And this results in a push. Everybody gets their money back, nobody wins, nobody loses. It's effectively a tie. So then we'll just print that message. Push, nobody wins or loses. And that's handled. The next case is going to be if the player score is greater than the dealer score. Now, if the player score is greater than the dealer score, that would imply that the player either busted or won. So in this case, we're just handling, the assumption is if they were allowed to stand, then they have a hand that is 21 or less. And we're going to check for that other case in a second, but this assumes that the player has a valid hand. It assumes that the player has not busted. So for here, thanks Zach for the 10, appreciate that. Long time supporter and highly valued staff member. Thanks a lot for that. So we're going to print we're going to say you win. You beat the dealer. You beat the dealer. You win. And of course the final case, which we don't actually have to use an elif, the final case of course is going to be you lost. If the dealer didn't bust and the dealer doesn't have the same score as you and your score is not higher than the dealer, then that implies that the dealer score is higher than you, but lower than 22. In this case, you lose. Maybe throw a sad face in there. Whatever you want to do. So no matter what the outcome is here, we're going to have to break from this loop because the game's over. We're no longer playing. You know, they've been told that they lost, and that's sort of the end of that. Break, and it's over with. So there's a couple other cases that we have to check. Remember, we have to check the yeah, we're going to check that case sims. We're actually going to do that right now. This is one of the checks that we're going to check down here. Well, actually, we don't have to check it there. We're going to check it here. So we can either check it right after this or check it above it. It doesn't really matter, but we have to check to see if the player busted. To do that, we're going to do if player score is greater than 21. If the player score is greater than 21, then you busted. Game's over. You busted. And then at this point, we can just break out of that loop. The other thing we have to check is that did they get a blackjack? So to check if they got a blackjack, we also have to know, is this the first hand? So now we got to introduce a new variable here. And the new variable we're going to introduce is going to be first hand. So we'll do first hand equals true. And that's going to allow us to check that. So right after or right before, it doesn't make a difference. We'll do if it's the first hand and the player's score is exactly 21, which would imply that they got a face card and an ace, or a 10 and an ace, or whatever, then they win. Blackjack. Game's over. So print blackjack. You know, blackjack. Nice. And then again, break. Now, every time we do a break, we're signifying that the game is over. We're signifying that something has happened in the game that causes either a win or a lose, and that's what that's for. So, you know, we're breaking after they stand, we're breaking if they got a blackjack, and we're breaking when they bust, and that's it. So, I think we're pretty close. Let's give it a shot here. So, yeah, see blackjack, and then it ended. So I got a blackjack right away, and I won, so there was nothing left to do. So let's run it again. So we got an 11. What would you like to do? I would like to hit. So that gives me 16. I'm just going to stand just to see what happens. So it said I lose. Okay, so there's something that we failed to implement here. So it says I lose, but it didn't show me the dealer's cards. So we got to modify something here. So this was fine, printing out the dealer cards where we show them one card and the unknown card. That was fine until the player stands. So now that the player has stood, we need to show them all the cards. And fortunately, we already have this variable. It's called standing, and we're going to use that again here. So what we'll do is we'll introduce that. We'll say if standing. If they're standing, then we're going to print all their cards. If they're not standing, then we're going to print the, what we've always printed, kind of the one card and the unknown card. So to print the dealer cards, like we've done with the your cards, you can probably just copy this line into here. Replace your cards with dealer cards. Oh, I never had never had the colon there. Okay. So now we're showing all the dealer. Oh, we got to change that to dealer. And then we're doing the dealer's score. So all I've really done here is we're just saying if the player has stood, show all the dealer cards, and if the player has not stood, show just the first card, and then show the question mark, for a second card. And yeah, I think at this point I can just copy and paste all the code. Let me see if it fits in Discord. I'm gonna paste the whole program that I have so far. Yeah, of course it's too long. Okay, I'm gonna post the actual file in Discord because I think it's far enough along. Some guy in Sandy. This is pretty great. Thanks. Thanks a lot for the 10. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you enjoyed the stream. I thought this would be a fun one, and it seems like people are having some fun. So it's good. I'm gonna post that. Okay. I just posted the full program that I have so far, which I think is pretty much done. So if you want exactly what I have so far, just go grab it in Discord. And you can just get it there. So let's try it out now. So everything was working except it didn't show the dealer card. So if I stand, yeah, see, it worked. So that time I stood and it did dealer cards Q6622. Of course the dealer busted, therefore I win. So let's just try it a couple more times, just make sure everything's working. Okay, I'll stand again. Dealer got Jack and a Queen, which is a 20, and therefore I lose because I stood on 16. So I will just hit till I bust. See, so I busted, and that's it. And if I bust, I don't ever get to see the dealer cards. I busted. That's the end of the game. So 17, I'll stand. Dealer busted, you win. So we're just looking for a push now. There it is. So we got a push. The dealer got ace 9, which would be 11 plus 9, and then I got jack 10, which would be 20. Push, nobody wins or loses. So I think it's good. Is the first hand true going to break the loop when you get to the second hand? So the intent of the loop is just... Oh, okay. So yeah, that's one modification we can make. So right now the game just ends. But what you could do is you could wrap this entire thing starting from cards. You could wrap all this in another infinite loop, and then what that would do is that would just repeat the game every time, and that's certainly something you could do as well. First hand is essentially the same as same check as standing, right? Let's see. No, because they could not have stood on the first hand, and they could not have stood on the second hand or the third hand. So, no, it would have to be... oh yeah, you're right. Also, first hand is not updated. Oh, thank you. Thanks for that. So the blackjack only applies if it's the first hand. So if I... as soon as this check passes, I can just immediately set first hand to false. And I think that just fixed some stuff. So let's just do a... We only got about 5 more minutes left. Let's just do a top-down review of everything that we kind of did here. Also, I'm gonna publish a version on GitHub that does have that loop that lets you start new games over. So I recommend checking out the version that I'm gonna push to GitHub here in about 10 minutes. So let's just do a top-down review of kind of what we've done here. So we started by creating a calculation hand function which splits up the hand into aces and non-aces and then determines what the maximum score the person can have without busting would be, or if it's not possible, then of course it just returns a busted hand. So that's what we started there. Second, we create our deck of cards, of 52 cards, basically 13 cards, times 4 for every suit. Of course, the suits don't matter here. We could have implemented suits. I'm not a casino goer. I'm not like a professional blackjack. I don't think the suits matter, but if they do, let me know in the chat. But I don't think they do. And then we immediately just shuffled the cards. We created a new list two new lists, one for the dealer cards, one for the player cards. We then dealt two cards to each, the player and the dealer, and we did so in the proper order. We dealt to the player first, then the dealer, then the player, then the dealer. We created two, call them contextual variables, saying that standing is currently false and the first hand is currently true, which lets us check for various things as we go through. We started our infinite loop, which lets the user keep making decisions over and over again, and then it updates the cards and your cards to show the proper information. We cleared the screen just to get all the other garbage out of there. Then we calculated the two scores. We calculated the best hand for the player, best hand for the dealer. We check to see if the player is currently standing, and if they are, we're showing all the dealer cards. Otherwise, we're just showing the first dealer card, and then we're showing the question mark, just because the user doesn't get to see that card. And then in all cases, we show all the player cards. If the user has chosen to stand, then we're checking all the different exit cases here. We're checking the case where the dealer busted. We're checking the case where the scores match and therefore it's a push. We're checking the case where the player's score is higher than the dealer, therefore they win. And of course, the default case is the player loses. We're checking if it's the first hand and they got a blackjack. Basically they got 21 on the initial hand, and then we're just saying blackjack, nice, and then breaking. We're checking the case where the player busts, which is to say that it's the second hand and their score is over 21 and they have not stood. And then we're just asking the user what they want to do. Do you want to hit or stand? And then we're capturing that choice here. Choice equals input, your choice. And then we're processing the different choices that they pick. So if they choose to hit, we're simply appending another card to their list and starting the loop over again. If they choose to stand, then we're dealing cards to the dealer until they have over 16. And then we're saying that contextual variable standing equals true. And what we're left with is about a 94-line blackjack game, which is not super long, but it works. It works perfectly fine. 11, hit, 14, stand, I lost, king, king. So of course there's lots of things that, so now we're talking about the improvement piece. There's lots of things that can be improved here, and of course we can add a loop so the game loops over and over again. We can add multiplayer. We can add, of course, scores. We can add support for doubling down and splitting. We can add tons of different things we can add. So I urge you after this stream. In fact, I'm gonna upload it right now. I'm gonna put my original version here. Here, I'm gonna do it right now so I don't forget. Okay, it is live on GitHub right now. I will post the link. I'll post the exact link. Let's see here. Stream 14. There you go. So there you go. That's the exact link. That's the exact link for the actual code you're looking for. And yeah, so certainly take this and try to expand it. Expand it to make it better, and submit me, submit me your changes. I'd be interested in seeing. You can even do a PR onto that repo if you want. You can just send your changes there. So yeah, we're kind of at the end of the stream. I don't really. Let me see if there's any questions here. Okay, all the questions are basically handled. Nobody really asked questions. So if you have any questions about this exact code, if you have any questions about this video or the project or anything like that, head over to our Discord server and let's chat about it there. So I'm happy to go over this in more detail if you want, or if we want to do a follow-up thing, I'm happy to do that. I think that'd be fine. And but otherwise, see what you can do with it. See if you can make it cool. I think a multiplayer version would be really cool. Have like a rendezvous server where, the first two people that start the game, it just automatically connects them to the same server, and then it has multiplayer. I think that'd be a pretty sweet thing. But this was about all I wanted to do on stream. Of course, it's, we use all the time. I didn't even do the second portion of the Q&A. We spent about 50 minutes on this, and it was only 100 lines. Hopefully I went slow enough. I apologize if I didn't. I filled the time completely up. About 50 minutes to do 100 lines of code. So that's about one line every 30 seconds. Hopefully that was slow enough for everybody to kind of absorb what was going on. But you have the code now to understand it, and I think that'll be good. So that's it. We're all set. If you're not on the Discord server, join over there. If you want to check out some challenges, you can go to emkc.org. Go to emkc.org if you want to try out some challenges, if you want to hone your skills for Python or JavaScript or Swift, Java, C, C++, C Sharp. I think that covers everything. Oh, Go, of course. And tomorrow the Docker video comes out. Not even kidding this time. I know I've been saying that for the past few weeks, but I guarantee it's coming out tomorrow. So if you've been waiting patiently on that, I appreciate your patience, and it will come out. As far as the stream, we're going to have another stream in 2 weeks from now. They're every other Saturday at noon Central Standard Time. I don't know the content, but I don't think we've ever missed a stream yet. So I will see you in 2 weeks. And of course, happy coding, and hope to see you around the Discord. Take care.